For years, they were inseparable, a mother and her two daughters who called themselves the tripod. Sarah Ferguson, Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie seemed to embody loyalty and resilience, standing shoulder to shoulder through every royal headline and personal storm. Together, they were untouchable, or so it seemed. But behind the palace smiles and polished family photos, cracks were beginning to show. What started as whispers around Sarah's connection to a disgraced financier soon turned into the kind of revelation that shakes even the closest of families. And now, royal insiders claim the once unbreakable bond between the Duchess and her daughters has collapsed. How did one of the most devoted mother-daughter relationships in the royal world reach this point? And is there any hope left for the tripod to stand again? If you love uncovering the untold truths behind royal life, the loyalty, the secrets, and the stories that never make the official statement, then you're in the right place. Join us by subscribing and step into the side of royalty the world rarely gets to see.
Before the headlines, before the scandals, there was simply a mother and her daughters, a trio bound not by duty, but by genuine affection. Sarah Ferguson often described her girls as her greatest achievement, the one part of her life untouched by royal politics or public judgment. And for Beatrice and Eugenie, their mother wasn't just the Duchess of York, she was their confidant, their cheerleader, their safe place. They called themselves the tripod, a name that said everything. 3 people, perfectly balanced, each one supporting the others. Eugenie once said in an interview, "Mummy, Bea and I call ourselves the tripod. They're my best friends in the world." To royal watchers, it was a rare glimpse of warmth in a family known more for formality than affection. Together, they weathered divorces, tabloid storms, and the quiet isolation that often comes with being a royal out of favor. While others distanced themselves from Sarah after her own public controversies, her daughters never did. They appeared together at events, traveled together, even lived near each other, always presenting a united front, as though nothing could divide them. But sometimes what looks unbreakable from the outside is already beginning to bend within. Because while the world saw the strength of the tripod, the foundations of that bond were being quietly tested by circumstances, by choices, and by secrets too heavy to ignore. And soon, those cracks would widen in ways none of them could have predicted.
Even the closest families have moments when the world outside starts to seep in. For the Yorks, that moment came quietly, through whispers, headlines, and decisions that couldn't be undone. When Prince Andrew's connection to Jeffrey Epstein began dominating the news, Sarah stood firm beside her ex-husband, refusing to turn her back on the father of her children. For years, her loyalty was seen as admirable, a sign of her enduring compassion. But over time, that loyalty started to look more like blindness. Behind closed doors, Beatrice and Eugenie were caught in the middle of a storm they never asked for. Their father was under relentless scrutiny, their mother facing questions about her own judgment. Publicly, the sisters smiled, attended charity events, and carried on as if nothing had changed. But privately, sources say, the tension was unmistakable. Sarah had always been the family's steady voice, the one who insisted that love could conquer scandal. Yet, as more stories surfaced, even her daughters began to wonder if love was enough this time. The woman they'd always trusted to protect them suddenly seemed to be protecting someone else instead. And while the family tried to maintain appearances, the distance between mother and daughters began to grow. They were still the tripod in name, but the balance was shifting, and the foundation beneath them was starting to give way. But the real breaking point wasn't a scandal or a headline. It came from something far more personal, an email that would change everything.
It began with one message, an email written more than a decade ago, words that would come back to haunt Sarah Ferguson when the world saw them for the first time. In that email, she referred to Jeffrey Epstein as a supreme friend. The phrasing alone sent shockwaves through royal circles because it directly contradicted what she had said publicly just weeks earlier, that her involvement with him had been a gigantic error of judgment. For years, Sarah had worked tirelessly to separate herself from the cloud surrounding Epstein and Prince Andrew. She spoke about forgiveness, about learning from mistakes, about moving forward. But now that one email told a different story, one that suggested warmth where there should have been distance. When the correspondence surfaced, it didn't just damage her public image, it cracked something far more fragile, trust within her own family. According to close friends, Beatrice and Eugenie was stunned. They'd defended their mother countless times, insisting that she was simply misunderstood, yet this revelation made even them question what else might have been hidden from them. Those closest to the York family say it was the first time the daughters felt disappointed, not just in their father, but in their mother too. It was a quiet heartbreak, no public confrontation, no shouting matches, just a shift in how they looked at the woman who'd always been their protector. Sarah later explained that she'd written the email out of fear, to shield her family from potential threats, and perhaps that was true, but by then the damage was done. The once unshakable trust of her daughters had been replaced with doubt, and the bond that defined the tripod began to tilt. But this was only the beginning. What happened next would pull the family even further apart, not through scandal, but through survival.
In the months that followed, distance became their unspoken language. Beatrice and Eugenie, once constant fixtures by their mother's side, began spending more time away, both physically and emotionally. Each sister, now with her own family, seemed to retreat into her own world. Publicly, nothing appeared unusual. They still smiled at events, still shared light gestures, still spoke lovingly about Mummy. But those who knew them best noticed the difference. Fewer visits, shorter calls, and carefully chosen words. It wasn't resentment, it was weariness. Both daughters were caught in an impossible position. Their loyalty to their parents clashed with their growing need for peace. Every new headline about Prince Andrew or Sarah brought another wave of scrutiny, another reminder that no matter how hard they tried, the past refused to fade. And so they did what many do when the walls start closing in. They escaped. Beatrice was seen spending time abroad with her husband and child, while Eugenie quietly built a life between Portugal and the UK, far from the royal spotlight. Each step away felt like a form of protection, for themselves, for their children, for their sanity. Meanwhile, Sarah remained where she always had been, loyal, defiant, and perhaps a little lonely. Friends say she couldn't understand why her daughters seemed distant when all she'd ever tried to do was protect them. But from Beatrice and Eugenie's side, protection no longer looked the same. They wanted calm, not chaos, distance, not damage control. The tripod that once moved as one had now become three separate figures, each standing on her own. And though they still loved one another, love alone couldn't erase the weight of everything that had happened. Yet even in silence, family ties never truly disappear. And for Sarah Ferguson, the final test of that truth was still to come.
For Sarah Ferguson, family has always been her anchor, the one constant through a lifetime of royal storms. And even now, with her name tangled in controversy and her daughters stepping quietly away, that hasn't changed. If anything, it's made her hold on tighter. Friends say Sarah is still fiercely protective of Beatrice and Eugenie, even if the closeness they once shared has faded. She often speaks about them with pride, how strong they've become, how gracefully they've handled pressure that would break most people. But behind her public optimism lies something softer, a longing for the simplicity of what once was. In quieter moments, Sarah has reflected on her mistakes, admitting that loyalty can sometimes lead you into dangerous territory. Her story has become a delicate balance between redemption and regret, between defending the people she loves and learning to let them go. As for Beatrice and Eugenie, they've built their own lives beyond the palace walls, careers, families, and identities that don't depend on royal titles or headlines. But no matter how far they drift, there remains a connection that scandal can't fully erase. After all, forgiveness runs deep in the York family, even when trust has been tested to its limits. Those who know them best believe that in time, the tripod may find its balance again, perhaps not as it once was, but as something new. 3 women shaped by love, loss, and lessons the world watched unfold in real time. Because in the end, royalty fades, titles change, but the pull of family, that messy, unfiltered bond, never really disappears. And maybe that's where their story begins again, quietly, away from the cameras, as a mother and her daughters finding their way back to each other. If you found this story as revealing and human as we did, subscribe to stay with us. There are countless untold stories behind the palace walls, and we'll be here to bring them to light, one truth at a time.